So it's the second OTAs for the Saints. A little injury, some innovation, and an impact player, possibly, maybe. I'm Tim, and let's talk Saints. So the first thing we have to discuss, unfortunately, is Tanoh Kpassagnon Achilles injury. Kind of interesting enough. This I thought at first was a big breaking story because I thought it happened at the OTA while he was out there practicing. Um, but no, apparently the torn Achilles happened during the off season while he was doing personal workouts and everything, getting ready for this point in the season. Um, Obviously, so he's not participating in OTAs or training camp, mini camp or training camp. Not expected to be available for any of that, but they are expecting him back at some point during the season. And the reason why this kind of became a little less of a story is the Saints were aware apparently of the injury when it happened. They knew, and so all their free agency moves, draft, post draft moves, every along the way, they kind of knew about this. They were planning or making decisions based on already knowing that he wasn't going to be available for the off season at all and portions of the beginning of the season. Um, the real impact, and this is a loss for the Saints. He wasn't a starter, all pro, didn't take 80% of the defensive snaps, wasn't a 10 sack a year guy, anything like that. But he was a key piece on that defensive line because he could literally rotate through any spot on that defensive line and give you quality snaps and some production. And he was especially good in the interior pass rush and in passing situations. Uh, Last season, I'm sitting in the stands watching the Giants game. Saints play the Giants, and he had just he was toying with guys coming actually, even though technically he's an edge player, but they would line him up in those passing situations. He was terrorizing from that interior spot. Him and Brian Brzee both during that game when it was third and long, they were going. Um, yeah, oh, Tommy Cutlets was having just a horrible day because I'm pretty sure Passing had actually had 3 sacks that day. So this is a guy that is going to be missed in that role that he's played last, I think, 3 seasons now for the Saints. He was very good at it. And this is now we've got Isaiah Foskey and Peyton Turner, both young edge guys. Foskey, second round pick last year, Turner, first round pick a few years ago. Okay, they got to get healthy. They got to get ready. They're going to have to step up and help out now in the rotation. They're going to have to take some of those snaps from Pascal. And we're also hearing in the last couple of days and in the previous OTAs, some of the young guys like Trajan Jeffcoat and Nico Lalos are also kind of flashing some signs of maybe making a push to make this roster. And if they could, then they're going to see playing time. I mean, so they could become very, very valuable in this whole process, especially if either one of them, and I don't know this, but could steal some snaps in the interior like Pascal did. And if they can't, then they're going to have some of their young defensive tackles. They picked up a few of those D linemen, undrafted free agents. Plus, you've got Christian Boyd, who's more of the run stopper type guy. But who knows? You get just a little pass rush ability from him. He can earn more snaps, get in and step up. But somebody's obviously going to have to do it. The two wild cards in this are actually edge players like Cam Jordan and Peyton Turner, because while they are edge players, they have both, especially Cam several years ago, could kick in to the inside and give you that extra oomph on your pass rush from an interior spot when it's third, second, and super long. I they both have injury histories recently, so I don't know how much you could do that with them. But the option, if they are healthy and able to play well, that there is that option there. And there's a lot of defensive and pretty good ones defensive linemen still both edge and interior still hanging out in the free agent pool. I think the Saints, since they knew this in advance, I think they were kind of making a conscious decision because those very good defensive linemen, especially on the edge, are going to cost you some cash to go get them. But I don't think necessarily this was just a cost saving move by the Saints. I think they were waiting a little bit because in this evaluation period that we're talking about, hey, let's go take a hard look at some of these young guys that were either on the roster last year that, hey, can they step up? And some of these young guys we're bringing in, undrafted free agents and the rookies. Let's see what they can do. Can we fill in long enough till Kpassagnon comes back? We have question marks in Cam Jordan and Chase Young that should be answered mostly, especially Chase Young, by training camp, how much availability we're going to have with them. We may not have to go the free agent route. And if they do, I think it's going to be they want this to play out all the way through minicamp, and it logically makes choice. Play this out all the way through minicamp, and in that period of early June, after right when minicamp ends till training camp starts, then you may have to take a dip in that free agency pool and go grab Kyle Phillips is the name I've heard, Emmanuel Ogba, which is or Yannick Ngakwe, two really good edge rusher veteran guys that are sitting out there. But yeah, it's not going to be cheap. So, and who knows when you pull some of those veteran, especially edge guys, off the free agent pool late in the season, like sometimes they work out, but there's a little bit of a history of those guys are basically the reason why they're sitting out there is they're kind of winding down a little bit, so to speak. So the Saints, talking about innovation into the offense, finally starting to happen. Um, Reports coming in, and it should be obvious that they're steadily adding the concept of motion and play action into the scheme, um, which it was expected and had to happen because both of those things are kind of the backbone of a wide zone scheme that they're trying to implement. But one of the cool sides on this, and DA mentioned it a little bit uh, to the press, is the Saints defense getting more and more exposed to that because more and more teams are doing it, um, especially the better offensive teams that like to gain yards and score points. The Saints came across that a few times last year, and they're going to keep coming across motion and play action a lot this year. So hopefully our offense can do it so they can gain yards and score points, and our defense get really exposed to the process so they don't get exposed by it once they get on the field and start playing games. The biggest thing, cheat motion, which everybody knows normal motion. You'll have a player who's not at the line of scrimmage because they can't go in motion, but in the backfield, just motion in the backfield or a wide receiver motion across the formation. We've all seen it. Cheat motion, I don't know if everybody's aware of this. I think Mike McDaniel's kind of getting credit for inventing it last year with Tyreek Hill, who oddly enough is nicknamed the Cheetah. So the Cheetah in cheat motion was causing havoc, and other teams was doing it. Debo Samuels in San Francisco, any receiver with speed in the Rams, which is pretty much all of them, and Sean McVay. So if my little representation isn't going to clear it up for you, just Google cheat motion Tyreek Hill, and you'll see all kind of videos. But basically, if the top of your screen is the sideline and you have a wide receiver lined up on the line of scrimmage and one goes in motion, instead of typically going in straight line motion towards the boundary, they kind of do this bow or orbit, I think some people call it. So they're kind of bending more towards the backfield and away from the line of scrimmage. And when the ball snapped, they'll suddenly turn upfield. And it's kind of when it's a well timed thing, it's a really beautiful thing because basically, if he turns up too soon, it's a penalty. He can't step towards the line of scrimmage till the ball snapped. But it gives him a chance to build up momentum and if you catch one of the videos where they time it up perfectly, right when that ball snapped, he's making a turn. Somebody like Tyreek Hill, who is fast, is now it's like shooting him out of a cannon. And because it's motion, it also presents the problems. Well, one thing it does help the offense, especially the quarterback, a lot of times to pick up on coverage or defensive sets when you have motion. But it also just creates some chaos on the defensive side because now they have to adjust with a player moving across the formation. And when that player is somebody who's really fast and he's getting basically almost a head start downfield to get into a route, you know, think about if Taysom, Olave, Shaheed, Alvin, any of those guys that we have that can really run and get downfield and make a play, you're just kind of slingshotting them almost literally around a stationary guy. That's some chaos being created back there in the defensive secondary, trying to figure out who's going where and what we're going to do about it. And the thing is, concepts like motion and play action combined with effective play calling is kind of becoming a staple on, once again, we'll use the phrase offenses that like to gain yards and score touchdowns. And we saw it last year. Two games that immediately come to mind, although a lot of the offenses we played did do it. But Detroit in the dome, and then a little later on Thursday night when we went to LA to play the Rams, they destroyed us with stuff like this. And our defense is good. But they a lot of times they were setting us up so much with the play action, with the motion, and I'm pretty sure the Rams were running some cheat motion against us. That was just mind blowing to the secondary, trying to figure out who's picking up who and doing what. But it got to the point teams that were doing it really well, like Detroit and the Rams against us, felt like they were playing 11 of their guys on like 4 or 5 of our guys on defense. And it just, both teams were able to salt the game away. It was going to be a victory, and everybody knew it about halfway through the second quarter. So the Saints are going to see this against them, but more importantly, they're going to implement it in the offense. We have the weapons to be able to utilize this, just like other teams were using it against us to beat us around. And I don't know why Pete was resistant to it last year, couldn't understand it. But if anybody who was paying attention about around the league, just screaming at Pete Carmichael, more motion, more play action in the offense. That's why, because all around the league, other offensive coordinators were taking advantage of it, and they had some really, really good offenses. And let's be honest, Pete Carmichael took a metric crap ton of heat because of his inability to either or want to try to incorporate or whatever was going on. So it's kind of like one of those things in the NFL is a copycat league. And when something's working like that, everybody jumps on board. And it's really glaring when you have an offense like we had being stuck in the dark ages. It's a term I keep using in all these videos, but it really is compared to, it was we were going to a NASCAR race driving a Model T while everybody else had an actual NASCAR. And how do you compete and keep up? You can't. So I'm very, very happy to see this modernization. It's another phrase I'm using a lot of our offense into the NFL. I'm it kind of almost brings a tear to my eye that it's it's recognizing we have the weapons and we can do the same thing these other offenses are doing. And hey, welcome to modern offensive football, Who Dat Nation. And finally, we're going to talk a little bit about Nick Saldiveri. In case you don't know, he was a 4th-round pick last year by the Saints out of Old Dominion. He mostly played right tackle in college, but he was drafted, and a lot of the draft analysis on him was he was probably projected to actually move to guard or maybe even center, but guard seemed to be the common thought process about where he could wind up in the NFL. He only played 18 snaps for the Saints last year. So for all intents and purposes, he's still a rookie right now. I mean, he did have a better acclimation period to the NFL last season, almost like a redshirt rookie would be a good description of him because he didn't actually get a lot of chance to do anything on the field. The reason why I'm bringing him up is his performance at the OTAs, both last week and this week's. It keeps getting mentioned, and he's getting a long look at left guard. Uh, that his play looks, I would say, I hear a lot. He looks comfortable at the spot, which coming as a right tackle in college is very key. But has been looking pretty solid, and he's generating a little bit of a buzz at that left guard position. I did see yesterday a podcast, and I don't remember which one it is. I wish I could give him credit. So I watched a bunch of them. He, but he put it out there that he consciously changed his diet and off season training program to the fact that he came in looking stronger and more athletic and more comfortable in this, like we said, in this whole scheme. That it seems he could be making a push to definitely a push for playing time. But with this long, hard look at left guard, maybe we're seeing maybe he's going to be the guy that's going to take over that spot. And if he ultimately wins the job and plays well, hear me out. That second part, and plays well, because if he pulls a Penning or Ruiz like they did in their first year, and I don't know if they won the job or was just handed to him, but either way, they didn't play well, and it's not really helping things. But if he wins the starting job and plays well, in my mind, that would make him a pretty impactful player for the organization because right now, and this is subject to change, not written in stone, barely written in pencil. But it's looking like the offensive line is kind of shaping up going left to right as Fuaga, Saldiveri, McCoy, Ruiz, and Penny. And true rookie on the left, mm, I would have to say a redshirt rookie also on the left at left guard next to him. But some veteran presence in McCoy and somewhat Ruiz, and then reclamating Penning on the right tackle spot. But one thing that's all got in common, that's young. That's a lot of young potential on the offensive line across the board. And if this could hold up, this what they're seem to be looking at with these five players could hold up through OTAs and through minicamp. Because if it does, and they keep pushing forward, then you might have the shot at seeing this showing up in training camp and really being put to the test and go, can we do what some other teams around the league and the Saints did a couple times during the Sean Payton era? Start building a young offensive line that becomes a mainstay of our offense. And for the most part, keep it together for a long period of time. And for the most part, played very, very well together. Any one of those guys is an impact player under that scenario. But to bring it up, it looks like Saldiveri is trying to gain some ground and get some traction on that. And even if any of these five aren't, going to work out as this unit, and guys like Heron, Lemieux, and um, Yuta, who are all veterans that were brought in, um, they're still available. They know how to play the position. They've all played in zone schemes. None of this is really unfamiliar, and they may actually be in the starting the as the starters or in the hunt for the starters from the coaching staff. But at least we're giving the long, hard look to the young guys. And I don't know under the Sean era if we truly gave long, hard looks to many rookie or younger players. Again, it was almost like a lot of this was envisioned to be a predetermined outcome. Bring them in. We're going to try them out. And if it doesn't work out, a lot of times they were just cut for young players talking about. And then veteran players, when it didn't work out, again, I think I mentioned before in videos, it was just start jamming that square peg in the round hole and trying to make it work. So I am encouraged with a coaching staff who, at the very least, is taking these young guys and working with them and trying to develop them. Because again, like I said, this is not written in stone. It could change, and it may not be the ultimate plan. This may be the let's get them a lot of work now and get them ready. Because the veterans that we have as potential starters, backup depth pieces, whatever you want to call it, those veteran offensive linemen, they don't need as much of this time to figure this stuff out as these guys do. And if we can get them to the level where we need them by training camp and give them a legitimate shot to win, and you roll out a season with those five youngsters, again, able to play well and play at an NFL starter offensive lineman level, that's definitely some serious impact you're looking at there. So let me know in the comments your thoughts on Tanoh Kpassagnon injury, the innovation being brought in to the offense, or Saldiveri's potential at winning that left guard spot being a big impact to the offensive line and to the Saints. Um, just a quick note: the long form of the Let's Talk Saints podcast, which is on Rumble Sunday nights at 7 and YouTube on Mondays at 6:30 p.m. and that's Central Time for both of them. I do want to let everybody know this week Scott Fields is able to join us again. Is going to jump in, and we're going to do discussions on the Saints roster. Who needs to get better? Talk about some undrafted free agents with a chance to make the 53 man, and some potential breakout players we like for 2024. Also, if you want to get a little deeper dive into motion and play action and how it affects the wide zone scheme, the last long form episode, recent video on Taysom Hill and how he should be utilized in the new Kubiak scheme, you can go ahead and check that out. I've got some video and some stuff that can really kind of illustrate the point of what we're talking about. So thanks for watching today. We keep trying to bring Saints content to Who Dat Nation. Peace out. Who Dat.